RFID is dead, long live RFID talk, also known as my short shorts in front of everyone talk. That's all I got going for me. If this is not the talk you expected it to be, feel free to go somewhere else. So, first thing, most important things is during my I use what is known as the U-Drink protocol. This was invented by Deviant, or formulated by Deviant, who's here with us. Thank you, Deviant. Helped out with the shoot today. Glad he's here. But the effective rules of the drink, if you're not with it, this keeps going in and out. Am I doing something weird? We're gonna hold this thing. See a lot of lawbreakers out there tonight. That's from Magic Mike. I don't know if you've ever watched Magic Mike, that there's a part where what's his face? McConaughey comes out and he's like, "The law says you must not touch." But I think I see a lot of lawbreakers out there tonight. And I have to quit watching it after that because men come out and I feel weird and I don't want to deal with those emotions. That has nothing to do with my talk or U-Drink. It might have something to do with U-Drink. The U-Drink protocol, though, is where the speaker prepares a drink and pours themselves one. And if the speaker flubs or doesn't pay homage to the demo gods or something goes poorly or just decides to take a drink, the speaker takes a drink. If an audience member asks a good question or points out a flaw or just wants a drink, they get a drink. So, our drink for this evening, I have titled Fuzz Bunch Punch. I'm going to start yelling for a minute. We have our WannaCry ransomware dispenser. And effectively, Fuzz Bunch Punch is 1 part hypnotic. What is that? So hypnotic is a very fine cognac drink. Yeah, sure. 1 part Hennessy. Be soft. And I'm going to have to stir this up somehow. I'll put my foot in it. And then 1 part Hammer and Sickle vodka. Which ironically is actually made in Poland. Jacksonville, Florida. Very important. Very precise measurements here. It's a very craft drink. I don't think you'll find this in any bar in the United States for a good reason. Should turn a little bit green. Oh yeah. I need that. And we do have small cups, so you're welcome. Smaller cups. This will be the first time I've drank this. That's so good. It's a real sharp hit. The saber's also sharp, and the finish makes your... So, yeah, that's that. A little gross. I mean, I knew it was going to be, so it's fine. I'm just pretending now. So, Squeak has volunteered to be my drink distributor this evening. So we appreciate that. Wow, that's bad. It's still, I feel it. Okay, so funny story about this. I'm just going to waste all my time telling stories. I'm from up in Winston-Salem. Every once in a while, you can find your way into really weird parts of YouTube. And one part of YouTube that I found is Winston-Salem rappers. I don't know if you know this, but Winston-Salem sometimes is referred to as the Tre Faux. It's called that because our local jail system, the prisoner and inmate numbers start with 3-4. So they're Tre Faux. Even Dave doesn't like it. That's how you know it's really bad. But there's a good friend, I call him a friend. I sent him a friend request from one of my fake Facebook accounts. His name's Carl Price, and I love Carl. And Carl has a song about Hypnotic and Hennessy, and it doesn't rhyme, and it's awesome. Anyway, Carl's the inspiration for this, and I added vodka because it wasn't bad enough. So, who am I? So we already gave most of this stuff. I am with the FAIL Association of Lock Sport Enthusiasts. I do red teaming things. I do pen testing things. Sometimes we don't know what the difference is between those words because we use words and they mean whatever. I'm very technical in the industry. That's on my LinkedIn, so it has to be true. But a lot of my mindset when it comes to giving talks and when it comes to talking about information security, pen testing, things of that nature are all from a red team mindset. And what I mean by that effectively is an independent group. They can be within your own organization, but they kind of have a little bit of more leeway and less formal processes, more dynamic processes. But the whole goal is to challenge the organization in creative ways, so that the stuff that a tightly scoped penetration test from a requester probably won't include the authentication system that they use to integrate into their application or their mainframe or whatever. And so the red team should have the lateral ability, or even your good properly scoped pen test should have the ability to kind of look outside of that. So we look at larger scope, converged testing, if you want a big thing. The emphasis being that we are independent to a degree, and we challenge, and that needs to be through like adversarial replication. So you take a look at like what are your actual threat actors doing, not what is Qualys doing, not what is Nessus doing. What are your actual threat actors doing? And do you have people in your environment that have the capability and the permission to do those? Obviously in a controlled environment, right? We don't want to make the business lose money, but effectively the independent and challenge through adversarial replications, not through a list of trouble tickets. We often get comments like, I also think you're not that dedicated to preserving my feelings, which is true. Why you do this? I cry every time. Spoderman, please. That's like 3 years old me, man. Breaking out the classics. Gooby, please. So how does this apply to physical security, right? So this is not a lock-picking talk. I don't think I can give any more lock-picking talks. I can't even really do a village anymore. I just got over it, and I know myself well enough to know that this isn't what I should be doing. So we're talking about physical security, but not lock-picking. But there's still this whole idea of our building access controls secure our people and our data. Like, I like to put people first when I talk about these things because a lot of people are interested in, well, how does this protect my business? Like, well, your people are your business. Let's protect your people. Let's make sure that people aren't just walking in. And this directly applies to your RFID stuff because it requires the same level of monitoring and whatever types of anomaly detection or log alerting, things that you're doing already for your network intrusion or your web application firewalls, anything like that. You have to take the same types of alerting tools and processes. I can't think of a word, so I'm going to take a drink. But you want to be effective, right? I hope so. And the idea with RFID and physical security, and the reason we're talking about RFID is this final bullet point here, which is really the thesis of what I'm coming at for tonight, is that an attacker can get what they need, most of the time, from your or an employee's RFID badge, most of the time, without them knowing, most of the time. You see those caveats there on purpose. So RFID, right? So we're still kind of in this realm. Like RFID is an easy access control mechanism, right? So we have metal keys. I've not worked at very many companies that use metal keys. They've all switched over to RFID things, and it's very easy. So you can instead of having to collect a key from an employee, you can turn it off just like a password. And a lot of the things I talk about with recommendations with this, I treat RFID very similar than I do to passwords and kind of frame it in that context. RFID also originated, in a loose sense, as a replacement for magstripe readers. So like, what you have in your credit card, swipe, it gives data over, and RFID effectively became a way to replace that. So let's say you have magstripe systems in place and you want to do an upgrade. Well, the easiest way to do an upgrade is to install something that can still use your same back end, but replace the technology that transmits that same bit of data. And honestly, this is where the problems start to originate. There's the word. Drink again. It's going to make it worse. So, obviously it adds convenience, but we start to get into new concerns as well. So, RFID 101. Let's do this in very, very, very simple mode. RFID stands for Radio Frequency Identification. It is an acronym. It is the wireless use of electromagnetic fields, EMF, to transfer data. And it's used across, like, everywhere. Everybody uses it. Turns out everybody loves pictures, too. Let's do show and tell. So, this is your RFID card. This is your reader. There are two inductive coils, so all of the radio people in the room will hopefully appreciate me not calling them antennas because they're not long enough. But they're inductive coils that resonate, and they create an EMF. And what happens is the reader is the active portion of that transaction. So the reader is emanating this electromagnetic field. Your card with the RFID transponder comes into play with it. The coil in the card is energized, collects enough of that energy to energize the card itself, and a transmission occurs. That's effectively what happens. Well, there are some pretty immediate problems with that when we start to look about what's going on, right? So our tags are passive. You don't have a battery in those little cards. You don't have a battery in those little key fobs. And what happens is when your card gets close enough, it gets excited, whee, and it talks to the reader. Well, what if I'm the reader? What does your card do? Talks to me. It's a little chatty. The other question is, how close do I need to be? Do I need to bump into you? Probably not. We'll get there. Although I left. Funny story, I got a self-handicap with this. Our demo kit caught on fire yesterday. We were at a conference in Charlotte. We had our little maglock system on the table running our Arduino, and Arduino suddenly, so I don't have a demo. Drink. All right, so let's go a little bit deeper into this. Little more than simple mode. General RFID types: low frequency, high frequency, ultra high frequency. All right, so what about LF? LF band covers a pretty good range. If you've done any radio study, you can look these up and correct me later. That's fine. I don't care. But it's roughly 30 kilohertz to 300 kilohertz. Low frequency RFID systems, though, are generally at 125 kilohertz. There are some systems that operate at 134, but generally speaking, what you're going to encounter with low frequency cards are going to be 125. Now, because of the size of the inductive coil, physics, skip all the formulas because I don't know them. But effectively, in most cases, this provides a fairly short read band, about 4 inches if you use freedom units instead of centimeters. And I use freedom units, so America. USA, USA. High frequency, in this context, it ranges from 3 to 30 megahertz. So it's a good bit up the spectrum. So kilohertz, megahertz, we've done all of those various kilo, mega, right? These are generally around 13.56, and they have a bigger read range, right? So you can get up to 3 feet in general applications. Now we're going to see here in a little bit that you can actually get about this amount of range out of low frequency, except for there's no demo because of caught on fire. But high frequency also includes like your NFC. So your phones are intended to be, like you have NFC on your phone, NFC chips in your hand or whatever. They're intended to be fairly close proximity simply because the same method works, right? So you have a reader that's active, the tag that's passive, it gets excited, and then it replays the information. Squeak, you're doing a great job. Everybody give Squeak a hand. Handing out drinks. How is that, by the way? Who's had it? Who's drinking this? Isn't it bad? You want some more? Yeah, that's like $85 worth of liquor. Yes. Yeah, sure, exactly. You get what you pay for. I paid for this. You pay for your badge. Drink more of it. You'll get more money's worth. So high-frequency systems do experience some interference, but they're a little bit better about it than the low-frequency stuff. So UHF, this covers much higher, up even above what we typically consider like 2.4 gigahertz wireless. Generally, that can get up to about 32 feet. And there's some variance, but it's usually around 900, 915 megahertz, right? So everybody, let's pictures. Low frequencies down here. And let's do a little bit quick science lesson too, right? Like, this is just not visible spectrum, right? Like, when you look at the EMF spectrum and the small portion of it that's visible light, everyone's very blind. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can't see. We get to see Roy G. Biv, or is it Biv? Biv? Is the I there anymore? Neil deGrasse Tyson kicked out Pluto. Did he kick out the I too? I'm not a comedian. I should quit that. So low frequencies down here. We can't see it. I mean, if you can, I'd love to talk to you. High frequency UHF, right? So there's where all of these things sit. And here's our badges and whatnot. So I have a spoiler alert. If you use low frequency RFID, your badge is not safe. I will just say that without any qualification and know that there's like, well, if you consider, no, your badge isn't safe. If you use high frequency, it's probably still not safe. I'm going to mention by name a couple of things that I find very effective for high frequency RFID, but generally speaking, the stuff that's out there and is most widely deployed has not quite caught up yet with the proper things. If you use UHF, you're probably at Target and you're a product that's being inventoried and going to be put out for sale later, because I have not yet seen UHF used for access control. It might be. I don't know. You're aware of any UHF? Like, I don't think we want our doors opening 30 feet away, right? Pew! I'm in. Right, yeah, exactly. You just shoot it. I mean, I got a friend who works at Target, and he's in charge of doing inventory in the back, and he has a UHF reader, and he seriously just rides around on a cart and just boop, 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 all day. I'm like, man, if that job didn't pay $8.50 an hour, I would be all about it. I like to buy too many guns to make that amount of money. My finest Tupperware. It's a Glock. That's a Glock joke. I don't know if you look made out of plastic. Yeah, my Glock shield. I'm not gonna tell that story. Maybe later. I'm tempted. All right, so Glock shield. This is good. This is a good joke. I work with a fellow, and he loves to tell stories about. I mean, I love to tell stories too, so I can't judge him there. But he tends to tell the same stories a lot. He likes to tell this story about how his wife got a Glock 19 and slippers for Christmas. It's a great story. It's a pretty funny story, but when you've heard it also 19 times, you're like, I don't know what this is. So our wonderful South African here, Adrian, started like preempting the guy. If he heard the story coming, he would be like, oh yeah, your wife got like a Glock 94. And he'd be like, no, it's a Glock 19. Or he'd be like, no, you got a Glock 1911. No, it's a Glock 19. It's just he couldn't let it go. He always has to correct it. So at this point, all he does is like, yeah, you got that Glock shield. So, which is a great permutation. There's a M&P shield and there's like a Glock. And, so I got a Glock. I carry a Glock when I'm in my concealed. Not now, because it's not allowed. So that prevents things from happening, apparently. I don't know. We're a rule-following culture. But Adrian one day was like, yeah, John got that Glock shield. And he was like, what? And I was like, Adrian, I don't want to have this conversation. So that's the Glock shield story. Glock shield. Yeah, so, all right, so not me, that guy. We're out at breakfast one morning, and Adrian's been making these jokes for weeks. And he's like, no, you see it? He's sitting in the parking lot. Adrian said car park. That's what Americans call a parking lot. No, he has a speech impediment. We bear with him. And he's like waving it in the parking lot. Here's my MP shield, Adrian. I don't know. It's fine. This is videoed. No, this is way better than my talk. Are you kidding? I tried to give my slot away like 6 times. Unq was worried about me. He like messaged me on Hangouts when he's like, are you okay? Do you want to give this talk? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Fuck you. So, where was I even? Yeah, all right. All right, so I already did these. All right, so why are your badges not safe? Let's talk about this doom and gloom that I'm preaching up here. I won't try to heal you, I promise. The reason that is because your cards have this nice little string of hex inside of them. And that's what they send to the reader. The reader takes that information, kicks it back, and says, hey, does this check out? Back-end system says yes or no. If it says yes, triggers the release on the magnet or the strike or whatever component is being used to prevent your access, the turnstile, whatever is actually there. And then if it says no, then it says go away. Yes, sir? Right, so you asked me this question in Raleigh, and I have since then, and we found some, but I can't talk about it. It wasn't SQL injection, it was stack overflows. Because it turns out those hex strings are about 16 characters. Well, what happens if you give them 500? They shit the bed. So, yeah. I knew it was coming, because this is basically the same talk I gave at ISSA Raleigh. It's fine. Yeah, I knew it was coming. It's fine. I made sure I was ready too. The other component of this is that your cards can be read, right? This sounds really obvious. It's like saying trees aren't made of wood. Trees are wood. Like, cards can be read. They're built that way. That's the whole process of active and passive. Well, okay, well, what about encryption? Well, low-frequency cards, I've yet to come across one that encrypts anything. Some would say the reason is a limitation in the actual waveform of the 125 kilohertz. I don't know enough physics to say whether or not that's true. So if you want to do the math, go for it. 125 kilohertz, 16 characters. If you want to pack in like 256 AES, tell me if that fits. I don't know. I don't care. The problem, yes?
So you would have to hold the card against the reader for like 10 seconds.
Right, okay. Yeah. So it's not fast enough. It's just woo. So you hold it there for a long time, and then it would get it all back, and that's not okay. Right. We're going to stack everybody up in a line. Yep. I mean, it's fine. Many high-frequency implementations also don't utilize encryption. Or they do, and it's broken. I put a name up there. You could read that. I'm not going to say that out loud. I don't want a little letter from a lawyer. Again. I have their key, too, if you wanted. It's on the failed GitHub. We think that should be changed. So that particular thing is busted. Now, let me say this, though. I will say this out loud. HID is now pushing out a new type of I-class that is actually MyFair Desfire. And it's very deceiving, because I got given an assessment to evaluate some cards, and I was like, oh, I-class, they're busted. And then I get them and start looking at them, and they were actually Desfire. And what happened was they actually paid NXP, they paid them enough to remove their branding from the card initial handshake. So it's basically HID paid a lot of money, and now they're using Desfire. That's a great move, by the way. But that being said, generally, that one there is a problem, and the key's leaked, and that's kind of the whole issue. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this a little bit deeper. Let's talk about what you carry around. You have this nice little plastic badge, right? Well, this plastic badge looks like this on the inside. All right, so just to point out, so everybody knows what we're doing here, we have our coil. Again, it's not technically an antenna. You can call it that. I won't argue with you. Some people will. I don't care. And then you have your little chip. This little doodad. Tickle, tickle, got your belly. That little doodad does all of the communication, and it takes that coil there to absorb the information or the energy from the reader. So effectively what you have is behind either is just a string value. You have a string, and that's it. We'll look at some examples here in a second. Again, everybody loves pictures, right? So let's make sure this concept's clear. Reader coil generates a field. That card comes into range of that field, energizes it, boop, boop, kicks back what it needs. All right, so quick disclaimer. This is not intended to detail every possible vulnerability in RFID. I'm going to talk about some things that I use on a I'd like to say day-to-day basis, but I know that's a lie. It used to be a day-to-day basis. Working for one company instead of being consulting has its challenges. But effectively, I'm going to talk about some things that I use to compromise RFID. Right? It's going to require spending some money because it is fairly specialized hardware. Sometimes it doesn't require spending much money, as we'll see in a second. But it is what I'm trying to do here is just like let's crack the egg. Right? Let's drop it in. Start sizzling and figure out like if you folks wanted to do any RFID stuff, like where would you start, right? Well, first things, right? XKCD 538. Sometimes it's referred to as rubber hose cryptanalysis. The most effective way to get somebody's RFID badge is to beat the shit out of them and take it. You might go to jail. You probably will go to jail, but like, we need to be really obvious about this, right? Like, personal security is a thing. Personal security is a thing you have to have awareness about, all of this good stuff about whatever. You should have that. Other first things. When you have your badge, don't just let it free like a bird in public, right? Like, I know most organizations will have a policy that says you have to have your badge visible and on display so people can know that you're supposed to be here. It's a layer of security. It doesn't always work. I've walked through plenty of buildings with a badge on me that either I made or I was too lazy to even print anything on. And I just told the people, they haven't given me one with my picture on it yet. I don't know. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But if you're in public, slide it, like, at least make it a little hard for me. Put it in your back pocket. Force me to get closer to you. Put it in your bag. Don't even let me know you have it, things like that. Another thing, protect your magnets. And when I say protect your magnets, I'm referring to specifically mag-locked doors. So you need to look at your access controls. You need to look at your entry points and make sure that there's not a very easy bypass that could be accomplished with a screwdriver. The other good thing is don't store keys to high security locks in really bad lock boxes. What do I mean by this? All right, let's start with the magnets. All right, let's do a little bit of picture page. It's a little dark on the top. We'll look at the bottom one. Let's actually zoom in on the bottom one. And all I can say is this is bad, and whoever approved it should be bad. Feel bad. This is outside a secured area. What's that, 1, 2 screws? Maybe 3 more? Maybe some deeper ones up in the hole. Maybe let's say it takes an Allen wrench up in these guys. Whatever it is, you unscrew it and push the door open and it just hangs there. That's fine. Here's another thing, right? So top picture, pretty decent lock, right? It's dimple lock. Generally don't have great tools for that. It is compromisable. There are bypasses available. It's a thing you talk about. There are techniques for attacking this. But you always need to look at the bigger picture because, like, what's this dude doing up there on the top right? I don't know if you can see this, but that says ATM. And that means what you think it means. Automatic teller machine. It might not mean what you think it means. That means automatic teller machine. And this is also bad. All right, so your access controls. Reader, back end, door control. It's the whole concept, right? Reader, boop, goes to the back end. Back end says yes, no. If it says yes, door control says, okay, fine, come in. All right, so our demo, level 1. Demo, don't have it. I need a bigger drink of that. Proxmark 3. I think that if you can afford it, you should own a Proxmark. I think they're great. They're effectively a software-defined radio built specifically for the purpose of analyzing radio frequency identification. It's brilliant. You can upload your own firmware. There's all kinds of secondary code that's been written for it, and it's fantastic. I believe the individual who initially created it did it as a master's project, and it's just continued to be developed over time. Absolutely invaluable. That being said, you can write your own stuff. We'll kind of talk to that in a little bit. We'll talk about easy mode. Won't really get into hard mode with that, but again, demo. Don't have it. Call on fire, rest in peace. Maybe I'll write another one. But the whole idea here is it was just going to demonstrate that, right? We've talked about these concepts, right? So you have the reader, you have the card. I was going to cheat. I was going to use a low-frequency card. Doesn't have any encryption, which, it's still fairly ubiquitous that low-frequency cards are out. So let's talk a little bit different kinds. 3 major that I've encountered are going to be what's referred to as F2F, or Manchester Double, sometimes known as EM410X. And they'll puke out all kinds of information, but they'll have an EM tag ID, unique tag ID, and a pattern, and that'll be in there as well. The other big kicker you're going to run into, and this one you'll run into a lot for low frequency, is this company's. And they'll puke out the whole thing too. Format length, it'll tell you how long it is, it'll tell you what the facility code is, what FC is, and it'll tell you what card number it is. Sometimes you need those, a lot of times you don't. They love to put it on the cards. Yeah, if you can get a good picture of somebody's, it's just right on the outside. So all you effectively need is that tag ID that I've got blocked out. I don't know why I blocked that out, to make it feel more elite. Look, I did this. I did it again too. I know why I did this. It's because these are the pictures that I took for an ISSA conference, and they would be really. I would have more people come talk to me about like anonymizing that data than I would the talk. So I was like, fine, let's just block out some stuff that doesn't matter. Indal is much larger, bit length obviously of 64. You see a lot of these, I know with parking decks I've used and things of that nature. But all of these, again, are low frequency. So the Proxmark, this is just raw Proxmark output. One of the beautiful things about the Proxmark is you can take it, you can drop a card on it. If you think it's low frequency, you can just type LF search, and it'll check and see what it is. There you go. If it's high frequency, HF search. I think they deprecated that one. But you can have effectively the same command, and it will try to puke out everything you can. If you don't have the $400, $200, whatever to spend on a Proxmark, sometimes these work really great. If you want to buy from AliExpress, you can get them on Amazon too. These guys are like $12 on Amazon. They work great on the HID proc stuff. They're hit or miss, so you could still buy 10 of them and be cheaper than a Proxmark, but maybe 5 of them will work. I've got one that's just never worked, and I bought another one, it didn't work. I bought the third one, it finally worked. The instructions are also super hard to read. I won't quite get into why, because it's insensitive. But button press long time is tough. Sometimes I know what that means, sometimes I don't. Say again? Another kicker, and I'm going to give props here to Bishop Fox for this, just because you can grab all their files. You can write your own stuff, but if you're just getting started in this arena, this is a great approach. And I realize they collaborated with a lot of folks, so I don't want to take credit away from where it should be given. But Bishop Fox has compiled a lot of really great information for building this wonderful thing called a TASTIC. So a TASTIC is effectively a long-range reader. Panel antenna, it's about 12 by 12. I keep one in my bag. I don't know why. I act like I need it. I just have it there. It's fun. And you can power it with Duracells, or I prefer Energizers. Duracells always pop on me. Does anybody have that problem with Duracell? They just explode? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And what it will do is you drop in your own Arduino. You can load their code directly into it. They have great schematics on this. You can build your own. It costs a little bit of money. The reader's really the biggest part of cost consumption there. But you can get an idea of scale here. I should have put a banana in here for scale, but we have a card. But it's fairly large. But you can hide it in a nice little satchel or European bag, if you will, and sort of like get up to about 3 feet, right? And you're going to deal with something, but you don't have to get right up on somebody. I don't have any problem like following somebody into a Starbucks bathroom and sitting down in the stall next to them and getting their badge while they're sitting there doing their personal thing. But this is really nice because you can just walk past them and you don't have to bump them. It makes the attacker's life much easier because we have issues with physical contact as our personality types go, and we go to therapy for that. Another thing that's really great is this little thing called a bleaky or bleaky. Honestly, good luck if you can get one. You can get the schematics to build your own. Bleaky is really, really great because it has kind of multiple applications. If you're able to compromise a reader, you can actually drop this in line with the data signals, and it will copy out, it'll just read the Wiegand passively. So the back-end technology for protocol for most of what this stuff uses was called Wiegand. The EM410s are using the FTF, the Manchester double. It's a little bit different, so the Bleaky doesn't work on those, but that's a little bit of a rabbit trail that got a little more technical than I wanted to. But the cool thing about this, and obviously you have to make sure your scope will can allow for this if you're doing a formal test, is readable via Bluetooth energy, which means you can walk up to either a reader that you've compromised, or let's say you have your own TASTIC or long-range reader of some variety, and you have a Bleaky on that. You can actually just pop up your phone, act like everybody else in the world, and get card data out of it. So that received, that green bit there, we'll talk about in a second, is card data. And so the benefit of the TASTIC is, by default, it collects the data and it writes it to a micro SD card that's inside of it. Well, you have to go back or sit down in the park somewhere, pull the SD card out, plug it in your machine, write it to a new card, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas with the BLE key, you can actually start to get this on the fly. And there are other solutions to do this. I've seen some groups that have used, drawing a blank. I used to work for these guys, and I can't remember what they did for this. Anyway, it'll come to me. But ad hoc wireless networks or something, just some method to share information against people in the team that are in the field. So let's look at this particular bit we received. If you'll notice at the front, obviously 0x we can ignore. 1A is our start bit, 00 is our end. And what we have in between that is 6664 D9 0620. If you know anything about Indianness, we'll just use what you know about Indianness. If you don't, this is not a talk about that. I don't want to do that. So you fix that. You've actually got 2006 D9 6466. That's your badge. So the way I gathered this was by taking my long-range reader and tapping my Bleaky directly in line with those data signals, and it gets power from the same thing too. It's a great little device. It's tiny, and what it will do is just pipe that out to your phone. You obviously have to read it. There are various commands you have to send to it. The learning curve can be fairly steep if you're not super familiar with sending parameters and queries and things to Bluetooth Low Energy. But once you get the feel for it, it's kind of nice. We give them a good shout out here, but bleaky-rfid.com, a lot of good links to it. At least give you some ideas about some things for passing those sorts of things out. They use it primarily in their marketing materials as if you can compromise a reader, tap this in, put the reader back, come back a day later, walk up with your phone, and you can even replay various commands, right? So one of the cool things about the Bleaky right out of the box is you can just say, all right, read number 3, replay that. So it replays it because it's in between the reader and the back end and dumps it into the back end and says, yeah, sure, and you're good. You don't have to do any cloning, you don't have to do anything like that. I primarily use it for harvesting key IDs out of my long-range reader more quickly than having to pull the SD card out and that sort of thing. So, all right, quick thought framework. We're going to wrap this up. Your badge is only one layer of security. That's kind of the whole kicker here. Same as a lock. Layered security stuff is what we generally train for defensive folks. It's the same thing we train for offensive folks, right? You get past one thing, good. Celebrate your success, but understand that it's limited. You need to take that further. You need to show impact. You need to actually demonstrate what an actual attacker is going to do. A lot of times budget is your primarily concern for these things, and it's no different for defensive or offensive technology as it is for physical security. And so a lot of times, a submission will be sent out to say, hey, everybody bid on this, and cheapest bid wins, just because it's cheapest. I've already mentioned MyFair Desfire. They seem right now to be doing about the best job at the encryption. They handle a lot of the issues of who should my card talk to, as well as can protect the information that card is sending. So the big kicker with cards, right? So we talked about you read, your card doesn't know. It's fully agnostic. If it gets activated, it just sends whatever it sends. And Desfire does some really neat stuff. We won't go into detail here, but if you're more of a defensive folk or person or type or whatever you want to call yourself, it's current year. We can use whatever pronoun we want. And so if you want to look at that, go look at that. Conclusions. Don't blow up your physical security department and tell them you need to change all your badges. They don't like that. They probably don't understand what you're talking about. That's there, right? What you should do is illegal things. Please go do illegal things. It's okay. All right. So let's get a little bit more into the defensive school of things, right? So if an attacker can clone your card, how far can they get before you detect it? Are you checking to see, did somebody come in and then come in again before they left? Are you doing anti-passback stuff? Does that kind of take care of this? Are you doing other, if you're not doing anti-passback, are you doing things that kind of detect within a time period? Let's say I can get inside your reader. How long before you know about that? If I can get in your sensors, how long before you know about that? All of these sorts of things, right? So we continue this on through. Let's say I have an set of irregular card swipes and suddenly a good card swipe, right? So one of the cool things about the Proxmark, and I believe it was put out by Symantec. Shit, too much to drink. The automated one, the brute forcer, Proxbrute. Who wrote Proxbrute? Yeah, but who was he with when he did it? Because he had to sell it to them to give it to them. So there's a great little tool for Proxmark that you can just upload and use that you hold up your reader to and it can emulate a card, and it'll just try, if you have the first chunk of characters, it'll just try other characters until it works. So you'll have a lot of failed logins and then maybe a successful one. Same thing with passwords, right? We talked about that corollary a minute ago. Are you doing MFA, right? So like I've told a story before here even about breaking into a company where they had when you badge in, everyone's picture showed up on the security guard's monitor. So when you came in, they matched your face to a picture. So I'm trying to get into this building, and first thing in the morning, I'm in the line of people. Beep, beep, beep. The other fun thing is if you have a badge that matches the technology, but isn't necessarily a valid read, it might still beep, which gets you the rapport you need for the people that are in line with you, because they think, well, theirs beeps just like mine, so they should probably be here. They'll hold the door for you. It's great. But I got in, security guard obviously did security guard's job and stopped me. He was like, I need to see your badge. So I held it up. It was a blank badge because I'm lazy. And security guard asked me, why don't you have one with your picture on it? And I literally said, I haven't gotten one of those yet. And that was all the words I said, and they said, okay, and let me through. True story. And no, it didn't mean things. So like, does your MFA work, right? That's a second form of authentication, right? Like what should that guard have done? Taken my badge? I don't know. I don't really know. I didn't have to deal with that. If I had to deal with it, I'd have a longer story, but I have long enough stories as it is. Well, that's a different conversation. What should they do? That's a good question. What? Multi-factor authentication. Yeah, sorry about that. Multi-factor. Yep. Something you have, something you know, something you are.
What is ideal? Like, I'm just curious.
I don't know. Depends on your environment.
But if you're the security guard and somebody's like,
Yeah, I think ideally what should have happened was they should have confiscated my badge and attempted to read it again and check to see what that valid value was. If not, they should have had an escalation path in their chain that could have come and either confirmed or denied with either a manager I supplied or a manager that was already specified in their IR plans, so that they could have said, this is what should happen when you have someone walk into the building with a badge that doesn't work here. Yeah, they should have absolutely taken that card for me and not said, okay. But they learned from it. The one fun question was they actually, the folks asked me, like, should we fire that person? I was like, no. If you handle this correctly, that will never happen again. I promise. If you tell them, that guy that didn't have the badge that worked, like, he was here doing a test, and that didn't go well. So, some things. If you want more information, the fail table in the place where it's at today. So, fail table, quote unquote, it's going to be Hardware Hacking Village. I'm going to set up I have my long range reader here. I'm going to put it out in the Hardware Village tomorrow. We'll see if it gets stolen. I really hope it doesn't. Like, lock it down, and then we'll pick that lock too. It's fine. Proxclone.com has some great information if you want to kind of just lurk and scroll and click and scroll and see what's going on. Krebs has some stuff that your CISO level guys are going to love because they all love Krebs. Krebs is fine. I like Krebs. I like that. I hate that he's the only place some people get their information, but there could be worse places. And then, as I've mentioned, the MyFair stuff. I'm a big fan of MyFair Desfire and the MyFair Ultralight stuff. Really, really great work from those folks there at NXT. So I appreciate it. I'm done. I'm so glad. Thank you so much.